Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday, a nice Tuesday in May. My name is Mark Kleinschmidt, the president here at the Anne Arundel Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our current installment of a program we're calling Moving Forward, which we put together to help our members and other businesses kind of stay connected and informed during the COVID-19 situation. We still got a couple people who are logging in, so we're going to let them do that. But as they come aboard, I'll make a few remarks before we get going. It clearly has been a very challenging time for everybody locally, on the state level, regionally, nationally, globally. Locally, both the city of Annapolis and the county of Anne Arundel are moving pretty swiftly with trying to put together the rules and regulations to reopen. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of details that go into this. The elected officials want to be, first and foremost, safety, and make sure that things are put in place to maintain the health of the citizens. And as individual businesses, that is our big concern too, is how we keep our employees and our customers, clients, safe and healthy in our places of business. And clearly a lot of us have changed the way we do business. And here we are today with the Zoom meeting. It's a way to stay connected and promote, commerce and keep up with things. There will be a lot of changes. We had last week on this forum, we had Anirban Basu, probably the most respected economist in the state. And he kind of took us through the paces of what he sees. And the reality is, and I think we've got to get the facts on the table, it's going to be a slow recovery once we move forward. So it comes in two steps. First, we need to repair the businesses and get back in business. And then we need to rebuild and get ready and make some of the changes that we're going to have to need for all businesses and organizations to prosper. And that's going to include better use of technology, digging a little deeper and figuring out who your customer is and how to communicate with them. So those are going to be some very big changes as we move forward. And hopefully the Chamber will be able to help you through that transition, first to rebuild or to reopen, and then rebuild your businesses as we move forward. So there's still a lot of energy and optimism out there. Anne Arundel is a strong economy, and I think we're going to be fine, but it will take a little bit of time. So in the course of events, probably the most important thing we need to do is take care of our most vital asset, and that clearly is our employees that we have. So today, we're pleased to have with us folks from Kaiser Permanente, who are going to talk to us about mental health and well-being in the workplace. So with that, I'm going to send it over to Sandy Navarro to kind of get us started for today's presentation. Sandy, take it away.
Will do. Thank you very much, Mark, for that introduction. I am Sandy Navarro, Small Group Sales Executive for Kaiser Permanente in the Mid-Atlantic region, and I'd like to welcome everyone. I hope that everyone is doing well, and we're excited that we are able to bring to you today our Emotional Well-Being and Workforce Seminar, the basics for taking care of your employees in the time of COVID-19. At Kaiser Permanente, we believe that everyone deserves a chance to thrive, and that's why we support innovative efforts to improve community health, from working with our policymakers to help make healthcare more accessible and supportive to organizations like the Anne Arundel County Chamber of Commerce and their members. Kaiser Permanente is at the forefront of mental health and wellness, fueling global conversations and engaging with our diverse partners to making mental health and wellness a reality for us all. Our nation-leading mental health and addiction system really enables our members and their families to experience that healthy years during COVID 2019. And we want you to know that mental health is a top priority for Kaiser Permanente. So with that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce to you my colleague, Brandon Massey. Brandon is our Senior Workforce Health Consultant at Kaiser Permanente, with over 10 years of workforce health experience. He is also a certified human resource professional and a workplace wellness program manager. Brandon, camera's all yours.
Thank you. Thanks for that, the warm introduction and a little background. It's very interesting to hear, Mark share a little bit more about what's going on in Anne Arundel County. And I'm actually an Anne Arundel County resident myself, but I work in the Mid-Atlantic region. As Sandy mentioned, my role here at Kaiser Permanente is to support employer groups. That's my primary focus, is support employer groups and supporting their employees. And one of the things now, obviously, we're dealing with a very difficult time in the world right now. Stress, anxiety, healthcare management, maintenance, all these things are at a very tough point right now. And what we're hoping to cover today is, and to make sure this is interactive, of course, as well, we want to cover what's going on and what are some of the resources that are out there right now that you can use with your employees and yourselves as well. Some next steps, hopefully, as we start to return to the new normal. The term we keep hearing now, or some relevance, terminology of getting back to work and getting customers back in and getting your employees back to work. We want to talk a little bit about a few next steps. And we hope today that we can give you some resources, some things you can take with you, some things you can share. And one of the key, probably the most key thing I hope you take out of this is the thing I heard Mark mention earlier, and that was the connected. The biggest thing right now, and we'll go into a bunch of different stuff, but the biggest thing right now is making sure you're connected. Not only with your employees, but also your customer base, and making sure they understand that you're listening and you're in the same boat, right? We're all in the same world, we're in the same communities that we're sharing, and we're making sure we're having honest conversations. So I'm going to share it with my screen here. Hopefully this works.
Yeah, we think we've all spent a lot of time on the online meetings with Zoom and the like. So it has been a change, but a positive one. And like Brandon said, it keeps us connected, which is certainly a good thing.
Is my screen showing up there for you?
Yep.
Thanks. Before we get started today, I think we're going to do a quick poll just to kind of see how things are going for you, and see if to get you a little bit of level setting before we get started. Amy, are you able to launch that? Right on cue. If everyone could just take a brief moment there to answer that question. There are no wrong answers. As I think we talked about this, and I've done this presentation a few times and seen all the answers, many different ratios and percent wise. There are no wrong answers. Are we seeing some numbers come through?
We're at 73%.
Nice.
Yeah, and as we go through the presentation here, if folks have some questions, you can put it into the chat room or the Q&A, and we can get those questions asked and answered.
And as part of that, just to follow up with Mark, what he said is also if you're seeing anything, if you're doing anything unique, if you're doing anything you think would be helpful for the other attendees on this, also send that through to us as well. We could share that as a part of the follow-up from the presentation. We can, or even jump in during the call and share that. Good. So it looks like about 80% said to provide resources as an employer, and then about 20% said to follow the rules, policies from local government and employer laws. And that's, I mean, you guys are right on it right now. I think sometimes what we see with employer groups and we see with leaders is they want to get a little too involved sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with having honest conversations. There's nothing wrong with being a supportive environment. But your primary goal right now probably really is to focus on what's going on in your communities and in your local government to make sure you're following the right steps, but also making sure you're paying attention to the employer laws as well. There's a lot of things are changing in the environment. As Sandy mentioned, I worked in human resources for about 5 years, and there's a lot of employment laws you need to make sure you're staying on top of. So the best thing you can do is follow your local guidance and then focus on providing resources more so than trying to solve them. So our agenda today can be a little fluid as hopefully you can chime in with a few questions or you have some comments, then we definitely can get to those. But our agenda today is really just to focus on a little awareness about the rising anxiety, which I think we all know and we're all feeling, I think. The impacts of change on your workforce. We're going into a new environment, right? A new culture, I think, at least for the next several years. How you can support your employees. And then hopefully, most importantly, resources as well that you can support your employees with. So here's the slide here, the framework for a psychologically healthy workforce. Sometimes when you use the term psychologically, it sounds a little clinical, but really it's more about how can you support your workforce and create a supportive culture at work so that they feel comfortable, having those conversations with you. And first of all, knowing the impact, if you know the impact of the coronavirus and the COVID situation we have right now, people are affected at home, at work, our economy. I mean, we're all being impacted from every angle, basically. And we know there are a lot of mental stress, mental health issues that are going on. Break the silence, which may be the most important part of this framework, really, is how do you have conversations with your employees that are effective in getting them to open up, right? You may have an employee that has a immunocompromised person at home, or a person who may be higher at risk at home, or a relative, or you may have people that have different concerns than other people, and they may not feel comfortable sharing with that with you, and maybe they're having issues coming into work, or they're having some other personal issues that are coming through in work. Maybe you didn't understand that they had that going on at home, or maybe they have some things going on, with getting their kids through school, right? I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, which means I have a kindergartner and a second grader. And means I'm also a homeschooler, right? And I've never done this before, and I've never been that involved in making sure people are getting involved. So it's added a level of stress, and it's added a level of anxiety even for myself to handle that extra load on my total capacity. So making sure you're having conversations with your coworkers and also your customers, making sure you understand what are they feeling, how are they, what's going on with them. You have to be careful not to cross the line into asking about illnesses or other things like that, but making sure you have honest conversations, have that dialogue. That's how you're going to get the communication lines open to make yourself be most effective in getting your employees back in and feeling comfortable coming into work. Ensure you have robust care options. And really it's about education. It's about awareness of the resources that are available to you and your employees, making sure that they know where they can turn to if they do need help. And then most importantly, I think from my perspective as a workforce health person is building that culture, that there is an open dialogue, that there is a place where you can come in and you can voice your concerns. There's a place that you can share resources that are trusted, that it's not just one-sided, that the value is there for both sides. So the big thing with building a culture of well-being is communication. All this framework, everything I've mentioned here on this slide, really it's about having a dialogue with your employees and also with your customers to make sure you understand how they are seeing things. We all have our own perspectives. We all have our own priorities in what we choose to do and how we choose to act, but we have to understand that not everyone shares those. So having that dialogue, having that conversation may help them open up to you and tell you what their priorities are, what their perspective is in the situation, so that you can kind of either modify or adapt or help them become more comfortable. And I think that's really the next step to getting back to normal. Keep doing the air quotes there. And that's one of the next steps is getting people to feel comfortable coming into work, or getting comfortable with coming into your place of business and interacting with you. That's really how we're going to see the next steps and how we're going to recover from this. This slide here, it's kind of scary, but it's actually a little outdated. And this was done very recently. We look at the anxiety around the pandemic. We're seeing a very large increase in anxiety around the perspective, what's going on. And if you look here, this one says the first weeks of February, which was when this was just really coming around. And then you look in the first few weeks of March, we saw an even greater increase in anxiety. And if you think about your employees, yourself, are you feeling the anxiety? Are they feeling the anxiety? We know we already have very high levels of unemployment. We have, the stock market, people's retirement plans, people's home values. People have been directly impacted, economically during this crisis. And so we know that anxiety, frustration, stress, these are at all-time highs. So it really is, what do we do next? How do we transition from having anxiety and being very stressed to managing anxiety and managing stress? And as you take a look at those numbers, we want to do a quick poll here to see if you think this is on board with what you're seeing for yourself and in your workforce. So the question there is, are you surprised by the anxiety numbers? And please take a quick second there to let us know how you're feeling on that.
Yeah, I think the one word it relates right to the anxiety is we hear so frequently in the midst of all this is uncertainty, and uncharted waters. And so we've got all of that going on. And you're right about everything that happened, the impact on the stock market, schools, retirement, jobs, going to the baseball game, and anything. And we just don't know. So uncertainty is part of that anxiety.
We have some polling numbers in here, and looks like the majority of people think, that makes sense. And then a little bit smaller majority thinks, no, I thought it would be higher. And I think what we are going to see is that it's going to continue to be pretty high anxiety in our daily lives, because we don't have the continuity and we don't have the consistency that we used to have. And I think what Mark mentioned too is that we don't have a lot of our outlets, or we're just starting to get back our outlets to manage our stress and manage our anxiety. And even in those, we're not exactly sure how that process is going to go once they do open up more and more places for us to go, more activities for us to go, and celebrations and gatherings and such. So there's a lot of uncertainty as we move forward. So this time, obviously, we're running into some new workforce priorities that may cause stress, not only for you, but also for your employees and your customers. And, as a former HR professional, I can tell you, I dealt with many of these policies through the years, and a lot of times they are somewhat restrictive, or some of them are very rigid. And I think there's going to be some level of movement around some of these policies and protocols and agendas. And I know the EEOC guidelines, and we're going to see a lot of information coming out over the next few months on how to get back to work and how to get back to normal environment. But these are things you definitely need to be considering, right? You may have people coming in that you may have an environment where someone comes in and hears someone cough, right? In a store or in a place of business, or you may have someone come in and someone looks physically ill, or someone's talking about someone they've been around someone else. And so you're going to have, you're going to have gossip, right? We're going to have people talking to each other. And when we talked about earlier was have conversations, let people feel comfortable with asking you questions, comfortable with what should I do, right? Because you're seeing things about testing people before they come in. You're seeing people trying to do temperature checks and ask questions. And the guidelines around those are still a little wishy-washy at best. What we're seeing, and it's regional, it's national, it's community-based. So it's a lot of changes going on. So the main thing you can do, obviously, as an employer, is to focus on the core policies and things that are in place, and focusing on the guidelines that we're getting from the CDC and OSHA and some of the other national regulating bodies, and making sure that you're not overstepping, what your role is as an employer. So these priorities are ever changing. As we see, productivity needs may be different. You may have different capacity at your place of business. You may have different processes. You may even have your business evolve somewhat during this time. And we're all here on a Zoom call, and we're leveraging technology more so than we ever have. And there are many positive aspects that are going to come from that technology surge. And I think people that weren't comfortable before are going to start being more comfortable. And I think it's going to give us some advantages. So there are some silver, a little bit of a silver lining in some of these gloomy clouds right now, and that we can leverage technology. It may help with your marketing. It may help with some communication and resource sharing that you can do with your employees and your employees by leveraging more technology. And so I think as we see the staffing needs change, and as we see technology grow, and as we see the workforce relationship from employer employee slowly and change as we move forward. It's just really important that you, again, that you're having the dialogue, you're having the communication, and you're reaching out and you're trying to leverage all the resources that you can access. And we're hoping today, again, to share some resources, and we'll show you some stuff later on. But most of our focus is on things you can control, right? When you have a stressor, and this goes back to my training and my many years of wellness, stress has always been one of the things that's the hardest to address, right? We all know someone who deals with stress and gets stressed out over this, some really small, minor things, right? And we have people we know that are basically impervious to stress, right? And this, this crisis may be testing that person who's typically impervious, but we all deal with stress differently, right? So change is actually one of the leading causes of stress. If you think about that, when they say the biggest causes of stress are, relationship changes, marriage, divorce, moving, changing jobs, those type of things, those are all typically what we associate with the highest level of increase in stress, especially in acute stress. So if you think about what's going on right now, it's just a huge level of changes all around, right? So you may have workers working from home now. You may have workers working in different environments, even at work, with screens or different types of PPE going on. These are all different. These are changes to their environment. The interaction of managers and employees, the interaction of employees and customers. These are all changes, right? So we're seeing changes going on throughout the workforce. You think about the emotional changes that are going on most likely at home and around a person. Their family members, their friends, everyone's being impacted by these changes and by these added stressors, right? Our finances. I used to do a lot of financial consulting, and I've done a couple meetings recently about that, and people are just terrified, right? I mean, we see our retirement accounts impacted, home values impacted. We see bailouts. We see government intervening with a lot of different organizations and groups and adding money and, kind of questioning what's the next steps financially. So, there's just so many levels of change and stress that are going around, around us as we live through this pandemic right now. And what we can't control most of these, right? And that, in change, a lot of times we can't control the change, but there are some things we can, right? There are some things we can change. We can control how we react to these changes, and we can control what we do proactively. So today, hopefully, as we continue to talk a little bit more here, we're going to focus on some things you can do to proactively address your population, proactively address your health. This is a good time, as any, I guess, to make sure you're being proactive in your health. We're hearing stories about people avoiding care. People have chest pains or other issues going on, and they're not going to seek out care because they're still afraid of maybe going into an environment that may be more, COVID, may have people that have that illness there. And I think Mark mentioned at the beginning of the call where someone he knew was going to the doctor's office, and they actually had a virtual waiting lobby where people waited in their cars and got a text message to come in. So healthcare systems, and I know we at Kaiser, we're really focused on making sure people feel comfortable in coming back into care because we know people have been pushing off care. So again, this is that time to start being more proactive and making sure you're taking care of yourself. So not only in your healthcare needs, but also in your mental and physical health. This is when we need to make sure that we're focusing on coming out the other side. So not so much more of huddling down and just sheltering in place. Now we're focused on coming out the other side and making sure we're healthy and our employees are healthy enough to come back into work and feel comfortable and back into this new normal. This slide here, just kind of a little bit, I feel like it's just more of a stress ad, I guess, that we're seeing. The cost of workplace stress has always been this huge number that honestly is way underreported in my experience, in my opinion, that stress and workplace stress is a huge impact on your business. Typically, most of these costs are associated with healthcare costs and sometimes absenteeism and productivity. But I think we all know that whenever you're financially stressed or mentally stressed, things are going in your life, even before the COVID crisis, it impacted your work, right? When you had a relationship issue going on the night before and you came into work, it impacted how you dealt with customers. It impacted how you dealt with coworkers. So we know stress is impacting your workplace. We know it's impacting your workforce. And we know it's probably at an all-time high right now. So this is really an opportune time to really try to get out in front. and have those conversations and be proactive about your mental health and your physical health. So here we go. Now we're actually talking about a little less doom and gloom and a little bit more about what can we do, right? What can we do to address the issues that are going on in our workplace around stress, around mental health, around mental wellness? What's going on? What can we do to be proactive and to support a work-related, environment that will help your employees feel comfortable in getting back in that continuity? And one of the things is that I know my team at work, what we do, we focus on the strengthening of virtual community. A lot of us are working from home or we're working in different environments now, and we're focused on having a virtual relationship, right? Not only is it check-ins or emails, and we actually do accountability buddy things where we actually reach out to another person once a week and actually have a conversation with them just to say, how's it going? How are things? It's not about, what work did you do, or did you get that project done, or how's your health right now? It's more about just what's going on. Like, how are you feeling? How are you emotionally right now? How are things? And we really focus on strengthening those relationships while we're not necessarily, face to face and in person. And that's how we build trust, right? I love these the three bubbles that kind of tie into each other, is because they're all very interrelated. And when you build trust, that's how you open dialogue. That's how you open communication channels. And those are key to getting to understand what's going to happen when you get back to work. Now, you may already be back in you may be back already, or you may be getting ready to come back into the normal-ish work environment. But having those open, lines of dialogue are going to let you know what's going on with your workforce. If they're feeling extra stressed because of this, they're feeling extra stressed because of that. Maybe there's a chance for you to step in and lean in and help them in that, so they feel that you're, again, partnering with them and building trust that you're there with them, you're helping them. And that's going to build that value proposition between both of you, right? The employer and the employee. It's going to build that value that you're there to help each other through this. And you're hopefully coming out the other side being a stronger relationship, a stronger organization after coming through this crisis and dealing with this trauma, that we've all been dealing with through this. And then not the last thing, but to promote self-care. Right now, think of yourselves as an employer or a leader. Are you taking care of yourself? When you get on the airplane, and one of the first things they start doing their little safety checks, and they tell you, like, what's the first thing they tell you when you're with kids or when you're with someone is, put your mask on first, right? That way you can calm down and handle the other people with you. If you have children with you, if you have someone else with you, make sure you're putting your mask on first. Making sure you're taking care of yourself first, so you can be there and be ready for the other people. Build up your capacity to handle stress. Build up your capacity to help, so you can help handle stress for other people. That's the key thing that a leader can do during a time like this. They can really be there for the people that work for them, and be there for people that live around them, right? Your community, your family, your friends. That's the most powerful thing you can do in this type of an crisis, is be there for people, right? And you can't be there for people unless you take care of yourself first. And this is something, when I work with some larger employer groups, we always have a hard time, because we do a lot of management training and leadership training with them on stress management or on workplace health. And one of the hardest things we have is that we have to make sure that our frontline supervisors, our managers, our people are taking care of themselves. Because not only do you need to, it helps to walk the walk, right? But also it helps you have the capacity to be more effective in working with people and making sure they understand they can come to you, right? They can come to you for help. Like, you're not, if you're the leader that's all stressed out and visibly stressed and talking about it all the time, your employees probably aren't going to come to you, right? Because they don't want to add more stress on your plate. They don't want to tell you about their mom that's at home, right? Their 70-year-old mom that's at home that may be immunocompromised, because they don't want to add more stress, to your life. They don't want to tell you about maybe that homeschooling is just killing them right now because they have 3 kids at home and they're really struggling to keep up with the work, and the teachers are following up with them. They're missing assignments. They don't want to bring that stress to you because maybe they don't think you're ready for it. Maybe they don't think you can handle it. And if those things are going on at home, that's going to come into the workplace. Maybe not directly, but it's going to impact their leave, most likely. They're probably going to have to miss work intermittently for those type of issues. But they're also may not be there 100% for the job, right? For the productivity. They may not be there for the customer service that you need them to be there for. So building trust, promoting self-care, these type of opportunities that you have right now, it's a great way to strengthen yourself as an employer moving forward. just that the strength in virtual community that I mentioned briefly a few minutes ago. There are a lot of different things. These are some examples that you can try with your workforce. You also, I suggest trying it with your people in your family as well. You know, if you have friends and relatives that you don't see anymore, it's a good time to check in. And especially with and if you think about your employees, it's a good time to check in and make sure that they feel still bonded and they still feel part of the team, because they may be doing work at home, or they may be, you know, working with customers, filling orders, being productive, but do they feel part of the team? Are you still building that networking and that teamwork that makes an organization effective and efficient? So, you know, checking in, whether it's having a weekly call, having a virtual coffee hour with a coworker. I mean, great idea. This is a good thing. It's like a check-in, right? And what I would suggest is, personally, and seeing other organizations do it pretty well, is when you have one of these check-ins, don't make it about work all the time. You know, make it about something else. Make it fun. Try something else. You know, play a game of, you know, we had a virtual Zoom bingo I was on last week. And we ran around the house and we're grabbing things that matched on the card, and we were all laughing and joking around. It just broke up the monotony of the stress that's going on around us, right? And it wasn't about work. You know, it was about just talking and being people that work for the same organization, right? You know, so just a great way to connect. And it's something you can do. It doesn't cost you any money. It's a great way to kind of reconnect with your workforce, especially if you got, you know, some people are working from home, some people are working in different environments. It's just a great way to build more positivity in a time full of negativity. Host a virtual walking meeting, open team meetings with an icebreaker, just kind of like that bingo, or having some other type of game to start off with. It gets people to kind of pull themselves out of the negativity, right? They may be, you know, because good chance if you're doing a morning meeting or an online or a telephonic meeting in the morning, they've probably been getting their kids into schoolwork and doing all kinds of other things that they typically didn't do before. It's a great way to change up their mindset. I used to be a strength and conditioning coach many moons ago, and I worked in professional baseball for a few years. And we used to do a lot of stretching before we did anything, right? And I was talking to one of our physiologists, and I said, you know, a lot of the research shows stretching doesn't necessarily prevent injuries, actually. And he said, actually, a lot of the reason we do stretching is to change their mindset. It's to build a way to have their mind say, oh, I'm getting ready to go back to work, right? It's just to change it up. Or, oh, I'm taking myself out of this environment and putting myself in this environment. So an icebreaker or something at the beginning of team meetings is a good way to break up somebody's thought process and get them back to maybe a little more, perceptive or open mindset to get back to thinking about work more efficiently and working and getting back to normal work, right? Schedule virtual drop-in office hours for managers, or leaders or owners of companies. Having people know they can reach out to you during certain times is a huge thing about opening that dialogue. You know, they may not feel comfortable reaching out to you thinking that you're swamped right now. You know, you're too busy and you're really stressed out, right? Say, hey, you know what? On Fridays between 1 and 2 p.m. or whatever, or Thursdays between a certain time, my phone line's open. Please reach out. Or my office is open. Reach out. You know, it doesn't have to be about work. It could be about what's going on in your life. How are you handling things? You know, it's building that culture of support that makes employees feel comfortable having real conversations. You know, and again, we're going back to that comfortability of getting back to work. People feel comfortable coming into work. They're going to feel more comfortable dealing with customers and dealing with the business that you do. And then participate and ask questions during virtual meetings. If you can, ideally make your meetings interactive. Even this presentation today, like we would love to make it more interactive. It's a little difficult with this many people, but try to get people involved, pull them in. Sometimes people can tune out, or maybe there's things going on and again, they're not feeling part of the team because it's not interactive. And this is a great time to leverage technology and leverage these resources that people are becoming more comfortable with. And maybe it'll continue as you move on, as you move forward and we get back to hopefully having a vaccine or having some type of antibody testing where people can feel really comfortable. Hopefully you'll continue to use these and make your company more of a supportive culture at work. And then build trust. Ways managers can build trust. Here again, these are some more great examples, and we'll share these with you after this presentation / interactive work session is over. As give employees meaningful recognition. And when I say meaningful, I think we all have worked at companies or worked and had people give us kind of generic awards or some type of pat on the back or something simple. But a meaningful recognition, I think most of the time, if you make it personal, that's what we see being the most impactful. It doesn't have to be a monetary prize or a or a trophy or anything like that. It could just be like, hey, just a quick email on the side saying, you know what, I know things are tough right now, but Rand, the way you helped with that customer last Thursday was just eye-opening, and I really appreciate that effort. Little things like that will make people feel more normal getting back to work, feeling more value in the work that they do. That really helps people feel bought in when they come back, or when they're working through this type of environment, feeling part of the the initiative and part of the organization. Celebrate team successes. I think now more than ever, as your organization has success, celebrate it. This is a different time. Like, any positivity we can add to our lives is very welcome, right? We're all dealing with a lot of negativity, a lot of stress at home. We're dealing with some, news and things going around us. If we have success at work, let's celebrate that. This is a great time to really celebrate even things that aren't maybe the biggest success. If you've got your workplace set up to where it's safe, and you've done things to make it a great environment to make customers feel safe and your employees feel safe to come in, celebrate it. Celebrate that you've taken the right steps to be an effective organization, and you've taken the right steps to protect your employees and as part of your organization. Set expectations with employees clearly and early. This is one I think that's going to help a lot with, again, building that culture of support in your organization, is making sure you set expectations. I think a lot of this confusion and lack of continuity going back to work or going back to normal functioning workplaces, people aren't going to know what their roles are. They're not going to know what the expectations are. And that's going to cause more stress, right? So we keep talking about all these ways that stress are coming into life. If you can have conversations and set expectations early and clearly, you're going to help those people manage a lot of stress in their life. If they're supposed to, say like next Monday is the first day back, or next Monday is the first day they're opening the businesses back. Make sure you have that conversation before Monday saying, listen, this is what we're expecting. This is what I expect from you. Do you have any questions? What do you think? What are you feeling? Right? Making sure they're part of the process, because that's the worst thing. As employers, sometimes we can get into, following policies and guidelines on our side, but not really setting our employees up to understand what's going on. So then when they come in, they don't know exactly how to act. They may have a lot of anxiety before the day even starts, before they even get into work, and even throughout the day, if they don't know what they should be doing or how they should be interacting with the customers or interacting with other employees. So setting the expectations early and clearly is really going to help them manage a lot of anxiety, especially anxiety in the workplace. Check in with teams at the start of meetings. Check in with employees about their workloads. Make sure they feel comfortable about what they're doing in the environment that they're in. I think that's what Mark mentioned earlier, and we keep going over, is comfortability. That's how we get back to normal, right? When people feel comfortable coming into work, people feel comfortable going into businesses, that's where we're going to get back to what we consider normal, right? And the main thing is we need to make sure our employees are feeling comfortable. I'm not saying like, bending over backwards, doing everything we can with them, but having honest conversations is going to help you, again, be a more effective, trusted leader. Communicate changes and priorities frequently. If things are evolving, new policies, new guidelines are coming through, new community news, things are coming through, make sure you're communicating how that's going to impact your business, frequently. You may even suggest doing daily huddles or weekly huddles or weekly meetings that are going to explain to them, here's what we're hearing, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're hearing, here's what we think we're going to be doing, right? Or here's what we expect out of you. These are all building ways for you to take stress off of people's plates. When you take out the uncertainty of what's going on at work or what's going on in their job role, you're going to help them manage their stress. Allow flexible scheduling when possible. I mean, some businesses you can't do that, but if you can, again, that's going to be very valuable in lowering stress, building up capacity. We have a lot of stressful things going on in our lives. If there's something they can control, maybe it's a flexible schedule, that maybe it's later in the day, maybe it's some work from home, some in the office, some in the workplace. If that can help them manage their personal life better, it's going to lower their stress. It's going to help them come in and be a more effective employee. So, kind of staying open to that possibility as well is really going to help your employees manage their stress. It's going to help them control their stressors. Add rumor busting to your meeting agenda. I love this last bullet there because we're all hearing so much stuff right now. I mean, we're hearing conspiracies. We're hearing, just tons of things going on. We're seeing the news, depending on what channel you're on. We're hearing a lot going on. And having that open dialogue about, hey, what are you guys hearing, right? Is that going to impact us? Let's talk about it, right? That is going to help take stress off of your employees' plates. It's going to help them open up their capacity. By addressing some of the rumors that may be directly impacting your business is going to help them when they leave and go home and they're talking to their family, or when they leave, go home, or they're trying to go to sleep at night and they're thinking about work. If there's some things that they don't have to be thinking about or worrying about, that's going to help them, again, have more capacity to manage the stress that's in their lives. So this is another part that I think, I feel like we're piling on a little bit, but something you need to be thinking about as an employer and as a person, honestly, just a person in the world today is people that already had mental health conditions or already struggle with dealing with stress, or maybe they already had some levels of anxiety or were clinically diagnosed with a mental health condition. This time is probably even a little bit extra. And we know that roughly 1 in 5 people were pre-COVID were diagnosed with a mental health condition. So we have to think that's, if nothing else, if it's not higher, we know those people are probably impacted more so. And if you want to think about your employees, and depending on the size of your organization, you have to realize you probably have people that have some level of mental health or mental wellness issues going on in their life. And with the added on of the stress and the negativity of the COVID crisis, there's things you need to address. And again, it goes back to having dialogue, sharing resources, making sure you understand that people have their own priorities, their own perspectives of what's going on, and they have their own issues. We all have our own, right? So making sure you're taking that into consideration when you're planning your expectations, what you think they should be feeling, making sure you understand that there's a lot of mental health issues going on right now. And you as an employer, it's not your job to diagnose or treat anyone by no means, but it doesn't hurt to have conversations and understand what they're feeling. It doesn't hurt to share resources, right? So you may have people dealing with mental health conditions that may not be fully aware that they have great resources out there for them that may help them cope a little better with their mental health issue and the crisis that's going on now. And if you think as an employer, that's going to help you though, right? If a person's managing their mental health condition, they're going to come back into work and be fine and normal, right? Or normal, I guess. But if they're not managing that mental health condition, if they're not, and they're piling on this whole COVID crisis and stress issue, it's really going to impact how they come to work, and how they show up for work, and how they function. So be aware that mental health has been an issue in America and the world for many years now, and a growing issue. And this didn't help. Didn't help at all, to be honest. Kind of scary times we're in right now, but the best thing you can do as an employer is be proactive, have honest conversations, share resources, make sure you're getting out in front of this as much as you can. Like I said, control what you can control. So mental health, not a fun term typically, for many years, talking about mental health was sharing weakness, right? And many people don't feel like they want to openly be weak. That was typically something that we've seen for many years, and a lot of our research has shown that the stigma around mental health is and has been very negative, and people are concerned about their place at work. Well, if they admit to having a mental health issue, will they keep their job? Will they be able to get promoted? Will they be able to be more successful? Will they get looked over for other jobs? Or so the biggest thing with stigma busting is actually having conversations. Almost all mental health conditions are treatable, almost all. And if people are managing those conditions and are being proactive and taking care of themselves, they can be as good or better than people with no mental health conditions, right? And I think the 1 in 5 number is actually much lower than what's, it's just lower because of reporting. I think all of us suffer some level from mental stress and anxiety in our lives at time to time, right? So having conversations, checking in, something I mentioned a few times now, having that dialogue, how can I support you today? How are you feeling? Making it a little bit personal, not necessarily reaching out to be the shoulder to cry on or to lean on, but, more so like, how are you doing? And making sure they understand that you care, so that way they feel comfortable coming forward when something does happen outside of work, or when they're coming into work and they're having some issues, with their mental health or the mental wellness during the day or the night before or something. So they're not bringing into work, or if they are going to bring it into work, if they give you that heads up beforehand, maybe you can push them to doing something else. Or maybe you can ask them to take on a different role that day. You know, being able to adapt and handle and cope with all the issues we're dealing with is what's going to make you a successful leader. All right. So big one right here. More on the positive side is obviously is caring for yourself. We talked about putting your mask on first so that you can take care of your employees. This is crucial. This is a time when people have not been taking care of their health. I know some people are doing online classes and exercise classes, and a lot more people are walking now, which is good. But by and large, I think what we're going to find out is people have not really been taking care of their health. And a lot has to do with the stress and the negativity that they're perceiving. It's more of a hunker down mentality right now than it is a proactive take care of myself mentality. Most people have added on roles in their life, like schooling or other type of roles, that added into their daily life. So it's tougher to take a priority in yourself and in your healthcare. So these are all things. Eating healthy, of course, which can be difficult. I think all of us have a little bit more time to maybe cook, but doesn't mean we are cooking. A big one there is rest and relax. I think what we're seeing from a lot of surveys I've seen just very recently is that people aren't sleeping as well right now. And a lot of it has to do with stress and the changing environment, not knowing what to expect. Causes a lot of issues with people sleeping, because a lot of people think a lot and their minds kind of go a little overboard when they're trying to get that rest at night. So making sure it's a priority and making sure as an employer, and I'll share some of these later, that you're sharing resources about resting and about sleeping better. Because those are key during a time like this when schedules are a little out of whack, your mind racing, going through different things. Sleep and rest is probably one of the most important things you can do proactively to take care of your body to handle the stress. And it's something I think a lot of people are not really focused on. And there are a lot of great resources out there to help your employees and help yourself take a little more priority in getting that rest that you need, getting that meaningful sleep, getting through those full cycles of sleep. Get creative with exercise. I see a lot of people walking. We're finally able to get out in parks, and Mark was talking about riding his bike a lot, and people are getting out a little bit, which feels good to hear that people are trying to get out and get some exercise in. But we do know gyms have been closed for a while. A lot of people that went to gyms kind of have cut back. A lot of people are struggling with working out at home. So it's a good time to start promoting getting active again. And twofold. One of them is obviously it's healthy to be exercised, and that's going to help your employees feel better to have positive physical health, but also it's going to help them manage stress. One of the leading stress relievers, anxiety relievers, is physical activity, physical exertion. So having people be a little more active and finding time and energy for exercise is going to help them manage that stress and cope with some of the emotional well-being needs that we have right now. Talk and listen. And I put, this one on here is a great one because it doesn't have to be about promoting talking at work. I mean, hopefully you are promoting that you're having good dialogue with your employees. And so hopefully you're having those conversations, you're having conversations with the people in your lives as well. And then last one there, practice kindness. This one I do love because we're out there, thinking about when you're coming back to work, we're all dealing with tough times right now. Try to be kind if you can. And hopefully that, that's kind of that cyclical process, and it's going to come back in the circle. It's going to, we're all going to feel a little better as we go back into this normal world. All right, so we're almost done here. I know kind of ran through a lot of ideas and a lot of conversation starters, hopefully for you as you get back to your employees. But we're going to share with you a couple of different resources about promoting your self-care. After this is over, we'll share you a really great website called kp.org/selfcare. It's free for you to use. It's free for you to share. You don't have to be a Kaiser Permanente member. You don't have to be in our health plan. You don't have to be nothing associated with it all. It's free resources. There are audio, there's videos, there's apps, there's articles, tons of great resources. It's a really good thing you can send out really simply to your employees and to yourself to go through. A lot of great resources on there. And we're also going to send you a bunch more of these resources at the end as well. More stuff on mental health resources, emotional well-being. There's going to be talking points, tips, media options, for mindfulness and for meditation. And there's so many great resources out there. And you as an employer have a huge, huge opportunity to be that proactive sharer of resources. I know we're kind of running through time here a little bit. I think we have one last poll question, and then I think maybe we'll see. Do we have any time for Q&A? Mark? This last question here is actually, I think, pretty important. Something anytime I talk to people or I do consulting or I work with groups is I want to make sure you have at least one action step to take to your workforce. Now, you don't need to do all of these. You don't need to do, ideally, you at least do one of these, but make sure that you're either writing a mental note, writing something down. Take one proactive step for your organization to share resources, to make sure you understand what's going on. It doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be doing a formal evaluation of what's going on at work. It doesn't have to be anything, written. It could just be make sure you understand what's going on at work. And most importantly, as we'll get these answers here, but make sure you're sharing resources. Make sure you're being there for your employees. Oh, good. So we got a little mix of answers here. It looks like about a third of the people said evaluate your workforce needs, which is very, very, very true. Gather your resources and toolkit, about another third said start a dialogue. These are all very, very correct and relatively easy, to be honest. I mean, you can any of these steps, all these steps are something pretty easy. We're not going to asking you to go and change and do a great deal of work. Really just taking a proactive step and starting a dialogue. That's a great way to get going. Gathering some resources, sending them out. Another great proactive step, or evaluating what's going on and having a conversation with your workforce team. These are all great first steps. And that's a great way for you to get moving in the positive direction and getting back to that return to comfortability and normal. So I think if we have a few minutes for some questions. Do we have any come through, Mark?
Yeah, let me just kind of jump in here real quick. I think great presentation, by the way, and you shared some good simple things that folks can do. And as I started this out, I think any business, the most important resource they have are their employees. And, it's not all about salary. While that's certainly important, it's about the workplace. It's feeling wanted and respected, and keeping people together at this point in time, your employees, when we're distanced, working from remotely or businesses are just closed, is important. So going back to your comments about communication, I mean, that's just spot on, and keeping the dialogue going between the employees, because we're all in this together. We've heard that phrase a lot, but with this, it confronts that uncertainty, and uncertainty equals anxiety, as we were talking about. So I think that's real important, and hopefully we're going to start moving more towards opening slowly but surely. So it even becomes more important to ramp up the communications with your employees, so they know what to expect as we start to move to the other side, the new normal. So let's throw it out there. Somebody, if you want to, you can use in that little in the box. You can let's see, you can raise your hand or put a chat. Who's doing something interesting at their workplace with their employees to try and keep the morale up and keep everybody connected? So somebody raises their hand. How about Daryl? Let's see if we can get Daryl. Can we unmute Daryl and let him share it with us a little bit?
He's unmuted.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Daryl.
I just wanted to say one thing. It's, we have to look out for the employees. I understand that. And there's a lot of angst about families and how am I going to support my family, and in some cases anger. And that's what we're concerned about, that someone doesn't turn this back in on the organization itself and we end up with a workplace violence incident. This is something you need to watch for, guard against. If an employee starts showing signs that they're becoming more hostile or agitated inward, we need to know about that so we can get our crisis people working with your people and try to get help before we have an unfortunate incident.
And just so everyone knows, Daryl, just explain your position and what you do.
Yeah, I'm with the police department. I'm the liaison to the business community here in the county.
Yeah, and Daryl does a good job providing information about what's going on, but also providing resources and other things to help businesses. So that's a very valuable tool. So thank you for that input, Daryl. So who's seeing something interesting out there that you see another company do, but how would you promote a good workplace right now, given our uncertainty? Who wants to offer something up? A quiet crowd. That's very unusual here. So anybody in the restaurant business on the call this morning? I know the restaurants are working especially hard to bring people back and promote a good feeling there, because they have direct interaction with customers, as do retail. I mean, there are different types of business and situations. We've got our folks that have direct contact with the customer and client, and then we have the folks that are more working in the office and they don't have direct client contact. So some different things to do for morale. Restaurants and outwardly facing businesses have to do some things to boost the morale of the customers too. So that's an important thing. So, so Brandon, what are some other things that you've seen out there that you had some good ideas? What are some of your favorite ideas for boosting customer or employee morale right now during COVID-19?
Well, I think a lot of it again is I've seen some really organizations do some really good things with interactions with the employees, like having more games, a little bit of gamification, or more fun. Focus a little bit more on fun. Not saying devoting a lot of time to it, but even 15 minutes. There are some really great websites out there that have icebreakers, online team building ideas. There, we talked about bingo. We've done searches, treasure searches through your house. We've just played lots of different types of simple, fun things you can do. But really, it's about making sure people still feel connected. And that's why, like, a lot of times if people are all working from home, if you may be on meetings with other people, or you may be on work calls with other people, but those are typically, again, primarily only work. But if you can have that, even once a week, once every other week, team meeting or virtual meeting with someone, and make it not about work, again, it helps build back into the team, back into the team. Because a lot of, when you're on site with, at a workplace, there are a lot of non-work related conversations happening, right? Talking about family, you're talking about what's going on, you're talking about other things in your life, and you're building that relationship. And I think the one thing we're going to see lost during this time is some of those relationships have deteriorated a little bit, because we're not having, meaningful conversations around things that aren't work related. And I think as a leader, a manager or owner or, a company leadership person, you want to keep that buy-in from your employees to make sure that they understand that you're a person, you're dealing with, you're with them, we're all working together, right? It keeps that intact. I think if you can have those virtual conversations, virtual meetings, and make it a little bit more fun, or at least make it not about work, asking how are things, and what do you think is going to happen, or when we get back to work, how do you think you're going to handle it, getting back into work, and having those honest conversations. It's more important now than ever, because we're going to see, and actually that information that Daryl brought up about having a dangerous work environment, not necessarily that, hopefully, but people are still coming into a very unusual environment. They don't know what to expect, so right. There's going to be some levels of hostility and high levels of stress and frustrations and things going on. And if you can have that conversation to hopefully break that down a little bit before it happens, you're going to prevent some issues, and maybe not necessarily to the level of people getting into physical issues, but hopefully, being able to work effectively and feel comfortable.
I think you used the word culture, your company's culture. Even small businesses and large businesses have that culture, and it becomes comfortable for the employees. And the other thing, as we get to the other side, there's going to be issues with bringing some of the employees back. They may have other opportunities, or they may decide to not come back. But if they know that you have a good culture and they feel comfortable at the workplace, you're going to be able to bring your workforce back and kind of pick up where you left off. So that's important to maintain that communication and create your own identity, your own corporate or business culture. So that's a big asset too. So all right. Well, do we have any other comments or thoughts from any of the attendees? So any final comments, Sandy or Brandon, before we sign off here?
My final comments, take care of yourself. Make yourself a priority.
My
Yeah.
final comments are be well and stay safe, and start getting used to doing a little virtual outreach to your family, friends, and colleagues. It's not too bad to start getting used to the virtual setting, at least for a few more weeks.
Yeah, all good advice. So, all right, we will be back out next Tuesday with our next installment of Moving Forward. So thank everyone for tuning in today, and we will keep moving forward. As we said, we are all in this together. Thanks, and have a great rest of the day. Take care now. Bye.